Dominique Swain is screaming for her life in Fall Down Dead. And I do mean screaming. Here, have a listen to this.
What do you want?
The Picasso Killer!
Where?
He's out there, the Picasso
Who's out
Killer!
there?
He's chasing me! The Picasso Killer is chasing me!
Where?
He's out there! Just call the police, please!
I am.
The screaming goes on a little long because Dominique's character, kindly coffee shop waitress Christie, was just attacked twice. First by a homeless man, then by a man she believes correctly to be the Picasso Killer. She's trying to get into a locked but lighted building. Unfortunately, the security guard on duty is played by the late David Carradine, and he does everything slowly. Meanwhile, the agonized woman outside his door doesn't impress him at all. For those who remember Dominique Swain from her first starring role as Lolita opposite Jeremy Irons, this is quite a departure. For one thing, she's all grown up. And for another, as you could hear, she's really freaked out. Joining us today, in addition to Dominique, is the director of Fall Down Dead, Jon Keeyes. He is a veteran of indie horror films, including American Nightmare and Suburban Nightmare. Dominique and Jon, welcome to Mr. Media.
Howdy, how are you?
Hi,
Good. How you doing? Hey, Jon.
Hi,
Dominique,
Jon.
nice to have you here.
Hi, Dominique.
Well, thank you for having us on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Dominique, let me start with you. This is pretty horrific material. What drew you to this?
Well, I think that the absolute bottom line of scary movies is they're supposed to scare you. So, you know, if you can be terrified and believe that my character is terrified, then I think it's very basic, and we've succeeded.
Were you terrified? You seemed pretty terrified.
Oh, I was terrified. I can convince myself of, you know, anything. I think that that's all that it, you know, requires. But in the scene that you're actually describing, when I was pounding on that door, they called the police twice.
They actually called the police.
Oh yeah, just bystanders were, you know, scared for me. So.
Is that right?
Yeah, when we were rehearsing the scene with Dominique when she was running down the street screaming and pounding on the door and everything. You know, there's lights everywhere. There's obviously a movie crew, but she was so convincing that that after we did the rehearsal, just a few minutes later, 2 police cars, sirens and lights blazing, showed up at the building because bystanders had called the police believing a woman was in trouble.
Well. You know, if you were actually in that situation, Dominique, I think you'd want somebody to call for help. So maybe it's a good thing. Oh,
goodness me. Well, absolutely. It's just, you know, it's so difficult to get the police involved if you have, like, a squabble. But then once they get involved, they really, really get in your business. So it was actually more difficult to call them off.
Right.
And Jon, you know, I was and I hope you don't take offense that I was laughing at David Carradine in that scene. I'm hoping it was somewhat intentional that he's responding the way he is. He's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like who is the guy in the Real McCoys who used to hitch up his belt and go here. I was thinking of him a lot.
Well, exactly. And it's funny is I've always been a fan in horror movies and suspense thrillers. I've always been a fan of comic relief, and the bumbling security guard Wade was exactly that, intended comic relief. And when David got to the location and we were talking, he said, I really want to play this guy like Inspector Clouseau, bumbling and dropping things and tripping over himself. And David was just he was hysterical in it. We've been reading some things and from some other interviews and such, and everybody's kind of responded the same way of, my God, we didn't realize he was so funny, and he intentionally played it funny, which is exactly what we wanted, and I thought it came off great.
Well, and Dominique, your response to him is like, what is wrong with you? I mean, you didn't say that. It's like, I'm screaming my head off here. I'm being chased by this killer, and you're like, you say one thing, and he responds. He's completely out of sync in some ways.
Well,
but it becomes obvious.
Customer service in general, I think. Both of our, the way that we related to each other was just like, are you kidding me? And, his like, well, I can't help you, ma'am,
He's the security guard. She ends up being the one that has to suggest he calls the police.
Right. Well, I'm doing that. And yeah, I mean, customer service is a good point because, of course, your character is the waitress. I mean, we see you and you're talking to the police earlier in the film, and you have this homeless guy come in and hits you up for a cup of coffee, and you're like, sure, I can do that. And then you run into him later. It's like, can I have some money? Sure, I can give you $1. Sure, I can do that. And then you run into David Carradine, the security guard, and it's like, what are you bothering me for? What do I have to do?
Exactly, but just that like kind of a bit put out attitude, not like sort of layered onto the like bumbling guy. He actually was just like, what? Like, what do you want?
It's Christmas Eve. Why are you bothering me?
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Now let's put this the time frame. Explain the time frame of the film. Obviously, David's been gone a little while now, and films obviously start a long time before they actually come out. Jon, when was this filmed, and what's the time frame?
We made it about in 2007. So we made it in 2007, and of course, the whole post-production process and all of that, and it was really, it was really unfortunate that David wasn't here to see it finally, getting to come out and such, because when I heard that David had passed, that was really heartbreaking, and it was really sad. So it was unfortunate, but we made it about a year and a half. I guess it was about 2 years ago, and it's a Christmas movie, and we wanted to hold on to it and bring it out. It's a Christmas horror movie, so we wanted to bring it out in December for the holiday season.
Of course. I'm thinking back to the one movie that scared me for years that had a Christmas theme, and that would be it was early 70s. It was Tales from the Crypt. You had Santa and the beating heart, and yeah, of course, a great Christmas time.
How about Gremlins?
Gremlin, yeah.
Gremlins was
Christmas.
God,
well, there's
a
horror movie, particularly for horror fans, a horror movie at Christmas time is always a nice break from everything else that's coming out, and I've always been a big fan of holiday horror. It's a nice juxtaposition.
And so, Dominique, tell me about Jon. I mean, is that the only warped aspect of his character, or did you see others?
What do you mean?
Well, like the idea of bringing out a frightening, terrifying horror movie at Christmas time.
Oh God! I mean, I think that that's quintessential. I think that I mean, it's like clowns, or like creepy carousel music. It's just like juxtaposing things that are frightening with things that are supposed to be innocent and fun is the most terrifying thing. Maybe we're both a little twisted.
I think we're both a little twisted.
And Dominique, is this the first horror movie you've done?
Let me think. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, straight up horror, for sure.
That's kind of what I thought, but, you never know if you're missing something in someone's. And how does it differ? How does doing this kind of thing differ from another type of role? Whether, you've done, obviously, I mentioned Lolita, you did Face Off, Alpha Dog. Is it more stress and strain?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think that, no matter what the role is, it just requires total commitment. However, in a horror movie, when you're running around screaming all the time, you have to sort of, make sure that you have, a level performance so that people aren't just, thinking that you should be quiet when they're watching the movie, So I was trying to, temper it and also keep the commitment to, the terror of the character.
I think one of the things...
Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
One of the things I thought Dominique did so fantastically was there's certain horror movies that come out where the heroine is screaming her head off throughout the whole movie, and it becomes a little ridiculous and it becomes unbelievable. And I think that what she did, which was so fantastic, was what, like she said, she tempered it. She made it realistic. Her character goes through a lot of an emotional roller coaster throughout the movie. She's been attacked by a homeless man. She's become witness to this Picasso killer. And in any good horror movie or suspense thriller, you've got that roller coaster ride that looks like everything's going to get better just before everything gets worse. And she played that roller coaster, the believability of those emotions, so well that I think a lot of people can relate to exactly what all she goes through and that emotional ride that she goes through throughout the movie.
Go ahead, Dominique.
Why, thank you. But the thing that really attracted me to the role was this is not your average damsel in distress. She's actually quite, proactive while she is being attacked, and it's not even so much fear for herself, but for her daughter that keeps her, keeps her going, keeps her fighting. So, she's not exactly cowering in the corner.
Exactly.
Well, that's true. That's true. In the I should point out that in those first two encounters with the homeless guy and then the Picasso killer, she takes her cuts at these guys. She's not standing there just in the Janet. Oh gosh, my memory is leaving me in Psycho when she's in the shower. Just hands up, you're kicking and you're swinging and it is a more modern type of response. She's definitely not a victim. Yeah, she's definitely not a victim per se, or she doesn't play the victim role. John, did you tailor any of this to her that way, or was this the way the role was written? Well, I think it's probably it's twofold. It was the role was written that way to a degree, and then of course Dominique came in and brought her own personality and her own talent and skill to it, and it just personally as a director, I always I want to give the actors as much room as possible to flesh out and fill in the characters. There's a reason why she's as talented as she is, and I want to give them as much room as possible. So I think it's probably a little bit of both. The character was definitely written that way, and then I think Dominique really kind of fleshed that out and brought the right temperament and the right levels to her. And John, your resume is full of horror films. What is it that draws you to this genre? Why not science fiction or romantic comedy? I like to scare people. I grew up in a family of people that used to build and run Halloween houses, and I've been sort of surrounded by Halloween and by horror and all those things my entire life. And I remember as a little kid, we would be building and working in these Halloween houses, and there's a challenge. I'm a storyteller first. I love to tell stories, but I think second is creating an emotional response, and
And when we were doing those Halloween houses as a little kid, you did it right when you get the people to scream and the people to jump, and it's a challenge to do that and to do it well. And I think that's why I've always been attracted to horror the most. Is it's a difficult genre. I mean, anybody can make a horror movie, but it's a challenge to make one that's really scary, that really gets people to jump. And I love the challenge, and I love the enjoyment of watching people scream and then laugh at their own fear or their own screams, and it just gives me a lot of pleasure as a storyteller.
Now, I get that, and yet I'm thinking back to the last time that my wife and I did anything scary at Halloween to people. We one of us would hide around the side of the house and come out in like a completely covered in black with a flash camera, the old flash camera.
Right.
And we'd come out of the dark and start screaming and then popping flashes off at people. You know, the flash would go off and people would freak out and then they'd laugh. Okay. Well, the last time we did it, though, sadly, was there was a family, and they had an adult Down syndrome child, and I'm laughing because it wasn't funny to any of them, but we didn't know. I mean, it's dark; you can't see who's coming, and we did that, and the most of the people were laughing, and but the poor kid just went crazy, upset, and freaked out. And my wife and I looked at each other. Okay, we're never doing this again.
Oh my God! Well, the thing about scaring people for pleasure is that it's very enjoyable to feel scared like that. But like, I had an intruder in my house, and I was not enjoying it whatsoever. I was like trying to talk in like a low register, and I have this like scimitar knife that I bought at a flea market. And I was walking around, and all I had was like a long T-shirt, and I was like peeing down my leg, like, get out of here, get out of here. And then, they did leave. I scared them off, but I've never been so scared. And I mean, I don't think that that's like the good kind of scared. I think we want people to be like, the good kind of scared.
Exactly. That's great.
Not peeing down their leg, clutching a scimitar.
That's quite a story, too, by the way. Thank you for sharing it. Wow. And I guess, of course, the advantage with the films is that people are going to pay either at the theater or DVD. They want to be scared by you, as opposed to coming around the corner of Mr. Media's house and getting the crap scared out of you. Yes.
Exactly. Well, yes. It's that whole philosophical idea that horror movies allow us to work out our own fears in a safe environment. And it's the age-old adage about it. And I think, what you said was just right, is, when we're going to the movies or renting a DVD, we know exactly what we're getting ourselves in for. And there's always that little piece in the back of our brain that, we know we're safe. We're in a theater. We're at home watching our DVD. We know it's not real, so we can enjoy the scare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then for a couple days after, you're a little quaky in the parking garage.
Yeah.
That's how we'll know that we've done our job.
What, excuse me, what can each of you tell us about working with David Carradine? What did you take away from that, especially after you found out that he had passed? What did you most remember about him?
Ladies first?
He's a lovely person, and I had so much fun working with him, and I want him to be remembered for all of the wonderful things that he is, and it just seems criminal that the way that he died has been made so public. But he was a wonderful fellow, and just very supportive and a loving man.
Exactly. Yeah, there were two things that I really kind of took away from him when the movie was over with, when we were in post-production and doing looping and ADR and all of that. David came in and he did all that, and then he sat around and regaled us with stories it went on for like 2 hours, and he was a man that absolutely loved what he did. He loved movies. He loved talking about his movies. He he embraced the roles that made him, so popular, that made him so, a cult icon. He really embraced those things of his past. And there's actors that I think we've all come across before where they became famous because of a role or roles, and they don't particularly like to talk about it. And David really did embrace that, which I thought was fantastic. And then, David acted for, I don't know exactly what, 40, 50 years. And to watch him act and to see, just those decades of experience that he brought to the table was quite amazing. I mean, there's a scene in the movie where he flips his flashlight up into the air as one of the detectives is talking to him, and he could tell you to a moment exactly where each one of those words should be at as the flashlight's flipping through the air, because we did one take, and he's like, nope, we need to do it again, because the last time he said it, or the first time he said it, this word was when the flashlight was 3/4 arced up into the air, flashlight tip, just the perfection and the awareness of what he was doing was just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and also, one thing about, like, movie stars is they get bored of what they do. Like, it just becomes commonplace, and I don't think that he ever experienced that. Like, I think that he really had a passion for life and for his craft. Exactly.
Yeah, I totally
agree. And for his fellow actors. I mean, he was just, like, so generous. On camera, off camera, just a lovely, wonderful man.
And a slightly different topic, but I think it's important. How has the economy affected each of you in terms of your careers? Dominique, in terms of the availability of roles and opportunity, and Jon, in terms of getting financing and getting new pictures going. And maybe we'll go to the lady again here first.
Well, actually, I have a few projects that I'm trying to get off the ground, but the economy has really sort of messed everything up. There really isn't, that much work, and I don't know. I just turned down a film the other day where I was, supposed to be the pretty girl, and it made me cry to do it, but it's, that's not what I want to be. So I would say plum roles are hard to come by. However, from a movie making point of view, a lot of actors aren't working. So I'd say it's screwed. However, it's like the 20s. I think that historically, entertainment has done so well when everyone is in the dumps. So there's no real reason for this particular market to fall apart, but it has. So I think actually it's a really good market to make movies if you can get people to finance them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's because that's what I, over the last year and a half or so, on the filmmaking side, with the economy in the toilet, it's made it, most independent film is being financed through private equity, through investors and independent financiers, and all of them have been very tight and very wary about putting their money into anything, particularly in the movies. So it's made things really difficult. And at least within the last few months, I would say since September or so, as things have, there's been signs of recovery and things are slowly opening up. I've definitely begun to see a lot more financiers and investors starting to at least talk, doors beginning to open. But Dominique's right. I mean, there's not a lot of money, so there's not a lot of movies. Everybody wants to work right now, and I think I think that as things recover and the money starts to show up, I think we're gonna actually see some changes in the way, at least for a little while, in how the independent film works, and in that I think there's a lot of actors out there that really want some quality roles, and there's not a lot of roles in movies being made, and I think it'll be sort of beneficial for both. From the directing, producing standpoint, I'll be able to get some good movies going as the financing opens up, and actors are going to be able to find some juicy roles because everybody wants to work.
And I guess I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dominique.
Oh, no. I was actually just going to discuss my displeasure with people not investing, because movies are making more money than they ever have. So it's actually an excellent investment. I mean, all these people out of work, like, they can often afford to go to the movies. Like, I mean, if you look at the budgets, it's a cash cow. I just don't know, why people aren't financing films.
Exactly. I mean, we're at box offices at record highs. DVD sales are doing great. Video on demand's doing, the sales are doing fantastic.
People won't finance movies.
Exactly.
Stuff tentpole pictures.
Well, Jon, let's wrap by telling people, if we can, when and where they can see Fall Down Dead.
They can see Fall Down Dead December 18th through the 24th, just in time for Christmas. It's playing at the Laemmle Music Hall 3 on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. And I know that it's going to be rolling out in several more cities, quite a number of cities following Christmas. I don't think we have all those exact dates and locations yet, but if they're in the LA area, the Laemmle Music Hall 3 on Wilshire Boulevard, December 18th through the 24th.
All right. And folks, for more detail about the film, check out its website. It's falldownded.newfilmsint.com. Let me go through it again because some of you not so quick on this stuff. Fall Down Dead, that's the name of the film. That's all solid, then dot or period, newfilmsint.com. And Dominique and Jon, it was very enjoyable having you here. Thanks for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to talk to you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck to both of you. Come back and see us again soon.
All right, definitely. All right.
Thanks.
Bye,
All right.
Jon.
Bye, Dominique. See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. And for more interviews with film actors and directors, you can surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my earlier conversations with Kirk Douglas, Billy Bob Thornton, Ali Sheedy, and many more. Subscribe to Mr. Media on iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Just search Mr. Media Interviews from within iTunes and subscribe for free. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many locations. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman.com. That's ANDELMAN. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Twitter, www.twitter.com/Andelman or facebook.com/Andelman. Thanks so much for joining us today. Always appreciate when you give up a little piece of your day and come spend it with us.